with deep roots that bring forth fruit to glorify your name. In Jesus' name. One second. Okay, I believe that, especially from 2023 onwards, in this season, the Lord is awakening his children to their true identity. Okay, he's calling for a return to Genesis 1, 26, 27. We are supposed to be his image bearers, and we will bring his kingdom from heaven to earth. Okay, for the creation waits eagerly in eager anticipation, expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Oops, froze. Okay. No. Thank you. Okay, so identity, as defined by man, is the sense of who you are in relation to the people around you and society. But that's how the world defines it. Thank you. But the true definition of identity should be who we are in relation to God. Okay. Because as God declared in Genesis 1, 26, 27, I'm going to read this out. Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on earth. The only way to find out who we are is from the Creator who created us. There's no other definition. Okay, but so we are made in God's image, and we're supposed to be his kingdom image bearers. We're supposed to reflect, resemble, and represent his greatness and glory, so all will come to know that he is God. But man, being man, has veered away from the truth. Okay, I'm hidden. So this is what I believe God's plan is for us. He wants us to go back to this mandate of Genesis 1, 26, 27. We are made, our identity is we are made in the image of God. So instead of establishing our identity on the bedrock of God, we have sought to define ourselves on external factors. Or either that, or we bury ourselves under layers of other factors. Okay, and this affects our lives, the way we perceive things, the way we live our life, our priorities, what we expend our energy on. And we get distracted, we get sidetracked by what man defines as identity. And instead of walking into his purposes, we do something else. So let's just take a quick look. What are the 4 layers? Okay, so man based our identity on all the wrong factors. We either bury ourselves under controllable factors, or we define ourselves based on false theories like the Darwin theory that we come from apes, right? So there's layer 1, is something that you're born into, your inherited or your heritage attributes. It's something you're born into, something you can't quite change, your nationality, your culture. So for example, for me, I'm a Singaporean Chinese, so my identity tends to be about accolades, performance, right? What I achieve in life. Life is mostly about work. Then you have a second layer that we tend to identify with, our financial, educational, and social status. Sometimes our roles, not just in terms of as a daughter, mother, or wife, but as a firstborn. Okay, and then we also do define ourselves as what ministry we do, even in church. Okay. It's true, because every time we're in social events, especially among people we don't know, as Singaporeans, what do we do? What do we talk about? Which school we are from? True or not? What job you do? What else? My accomplishments, all my accolades, all the awards. And then when you talk about your children, IB, IP. So How much you paid? I wouldn't tell, but possibly, So we tend to identify ourselves based on these two layers. Now, God doesn't want us to do this, right? He never designed for us to do this. There's a reason why. I'm going to show you so that this is you. This is the person that God has created. And he has placed, according to Genesis 1:26-27, he has put his image in us. It doesn't change, it never goes away, and it doesn't ever diminish in any value. Okay, but what do we tend to do? Typical Singaporeans, anywhere like that in the world. We define ourselves based on these two layers. So let's just say, I'm a Singaporean Chinese. Okay, and I have a PhD in business management, right? It's about education, right? And I work in an acclaimed international organization, Merrill Lynch, for example. Okay, I'm a senior consultant. And I live in Sentosa Cove. I want to lah. Great. That's my desire. Okay. And so what happens? We say, I'm not going to build it too high because it's going to collapse. Then we all say, putting all these layers on, then we say, this is me. Why does God does not want us to do this? Because all these layers, layer 1 and 2, it's volatile. It changes. You can lose it anytime. So what happens when these layers change and it collapses? You lose your identity and you go into an identity crisis. So when you lose your job, your business collapses, when you break up your relationship, you lose money, you lose your friends, your whole world seems to become crashing down. And then some people repeat this cycle, right? It's okay. I will rebuild this. I will rebuild my job. I will find a new job. I will find new friends, whatever it is. And then you go into this whole cycle. This to me is walking in the wilderness. And this is why people go into mental breakdowns. Because if you go through this vicious cycle and again and again, but this is not what God intended. He said, my image is in you. It's not on these external factors. Okay. And in Singapore, what has happened is we don't just put these external layers on ourselves. We force people to conform to these layers. We impose these layers on others to conform. I'll give you an example. Okay, all the parents, right? Once you have kids, this is an actual experience. Once you know you're expecting, there are people who chart out 16-year plans for their unborn child. Oh, okay, someone. No? Okay. Before the child, maybe not 16 years, maybe 5, I don't know. Before the child is even born, they start to impose all these layers. Where are they going to study? Is it going to be IP, IB? Is it going to be gifted? Which school? What tuition centers am I going to send there? Because some of them has 3-year waiting list, right? And if it's a daughter, it's going to be ballet, it's going to be piano, it's going to be painting. So we force people to conform to these layers. And what's happened in Singapore is this: the teens have it the most hard. They are expected to conform to these layers. And not only that, not only the layers of financial and educational status, but they also have it harder because things like superficial things like the type of phone you have, the model, what sort of model wireless earbuds are you using, the brand of your shoes, the brand of your bags, it matters a lot to them. So if you don't conform, what happens is then there's a lot of cyberbullying. And that happened in January when this girl, she bought the Charles & Keith bag, which was a big deal to her because it was her father's hard-earned money. And that to her, but people dissed her, saying that Charles & Keith is not branded. Ayo. But it happened. And even for this girl, because her father got retrenched, they used to have a huge car, and then the father had to be a taxi driver. And she was ridiculed for it. And then she said, I had already internalized poor as part of my identity because people in society are forcing us to conform to these layers. So it's traumatic, right? So what do these layers, external 1 and 2, it creates a sense of insecurity and fear, which a lot of our kids are going through. It creates this mental health issues because of the pressure to conform. And then some people consider things like suicide and they go into addiction because they cannot cope. So there's a layer 3, what I call trauma. There's physical and emotional abuse. There's long-term sickness, acts of terror like witnessing suicide or being part of getting involved in a very severe accident. Okay, this affects the way you perceive your life. It affects the way you approach things. It creates a distorted perception of yourself. It oppresses you. Then there's the 4th layer, the sin, guilt, and shame from the past. Now, this affects your sense of self-worth. Sometimes if you go so long under this layer or a very thick layer of layer 4, your sense of self-worth is so small. You start to develop a victim mindset and you cannot move into your destiny for God. So sometimes people with this layer 4 will keep focusing on these negative things and they feel a sense of hopelessness so much. They stagnate in their lives from depression. Okay, so we are not defined by layers 3 and 4. Our value in God is not based on what we do or our past or our failures. Our value is based in His love for us. So I'll just give you an example. Let's assume that this is a $1,000 bill, right? This is the value of who we are. Even if I crush it, even if I soil it, it doesn't change. It's still $1,000. Then how much more us who are so precious to God? Our value doesn't change because of the image of God in us. The point is this: we're supposed to establish our image in Him so that when things change and external factors change, we don't shake. Nothing affects us. Okay, so the consequences of these 2 layers, you develop a victim mindset from long-term oppression, addiction, suicide, and sometimes gender confusion. So we have to also consider and bear in mind that the enemy that always wants to seek, kill, and destroy is out to prevent us from seeing that we are made in the image of God. And how do they do this? Through deception, distraction, oppression. They weaken you. They dilute your real self and keep you enslaved to the flesh and old ways of thinking. So this is a question I just want to pose to ourselves. What is your identity based on? Any of these external factors? What is that one external factor, if you remove it from your life, layer 1, 2, or 3, or 4, will stir you to question your identity? Will you be devastated if you lose any of these? Your finances, your business, your job, your relationships, and even your ministry? Have we defined ourselves based on these external factors? Have we forgotten that we are but stewards of all external things? Have we given power and sovereignty in our lives to any of these external factors? Have we lost sight of who we are and what we were created by God to do? Have we truly died to self? Are we living from the inside out? Are we truly living like it's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me in every aspect? It's a good test, if you ask yourself, if you lose your job, are you going to go into an identity crisis? Have we truly died to self? So God uses the crisis in your life not just to strip you of what is not you and to establish your identity before promoting you into your destiny. So this is what happens. Layer 1, nationality, culture. Yeah, you want to take a look? And then layer 2. And then you say, I will lend you this data. This is me. This is you. And you are made in the image of God. Yeah. Okay. And then you are buried under layers 3 and layers 4. Now this is what happened to me the last 5 years. And so what God did was he will start to strip you because he'll put you in the wilderness. Nothing seems to work anymore. I think Wheeling knows. Everything crashed. Got sick. So the job stopped. So I was literally forced to just sit down and be still. And then I was working for Wheeling. And then all the work I did for her crashed. Nothing worked. So I sat down and I surrendered. And then he started to peel off the layers. And he started to heal me, trauma. And then he said, guilt and shame, no more. Christ in you. So he slowly removed them. Okay, then he tells you, because it was for me, it was about roles. I defined myself based on my role. I lived for my roles. Soon. And then what he did, he said, you are not just a mother, a daughter, and a wife. He said, you are my daughter. So he started removing the layers. And then he said, this is you. I think you can have it now. You know? Get very clear, okay? So God went on to say, be fruitful and multiply, right? In Genesis 1:26-27. So how are we going to do that? God, being the perfect God that he is, of perfect wisdom, obviously he will give us the ability to do that. Obviously he will give us the resources to do that. So what did he give us? He gave us modalities lah. God gave us a modality. We have 1/7 part of him in us. He has given us the ability to be successful in everything that we need to do. Right? As Pastor Gerard says, every soul is ordained for greatness. Every community can bless God. Everything you need to do to succeed, whether in your job or in anything that you need to do, is already in you. So what happens is we need to just find out what our modality is and what our strength is and what our weakness is. Increase the strength, reduce the weakness, right? So that we can excel in what we were designed by God to do for his purposes, not our own, not for external factors, but for the destiny that he has placed in us to do. So when you do that, productivity increases, returns increases, and then you share your fruits with other people. Okay, so today, very quick. We need to understand that we are created in the image of God. Everything we need for success, victory, dominion, glory, and righteousness are inside of me. So we went into, if the girls remember, right? We did modalities and we talked about how God created you. Each and every one of you is a genius. Where's Vivian? Vivian, you're a genius. Janu, you're a genius. Okay, so God created 7 kinds of geniuses and modalities, and you are one of them. And we need to know. So what is, just to revisit this again, right? What is modalities? Modalities is a default natural ability, the elemental you, the core you, the natural you, the inborn you, the you that God created and placed in you. Okay, so if you remember, for the Filipino girls, the 7 modalities, right? I'm going to repeat this again. What modalities is not? It's not your experience. It's not your upbringing. It's not your gifting from the Holy Spirit of fivefold ministry. It is not your passion. Your gifting will elevate you. Your modality will elevate you. Your passion will not. Remember, we have 2 main categories of modalities. You have the task-driven. I just want to get the job done. And then you have the people-driven. The Paracleo and the Eleusis, the people are more emotive who talk about I feel, and they focus on relationships and people. Okay, so why is modalities? I won't go into that. So I'm going to talk about modalities from two different perspectives so you have a better understanding of what it is. In terms of leadership style, okay, the proistemi is very autocratic. Pastor Audrey, right? Is it? Proistemi, right? Okay. Who else is a proistemi here? Anyone else? No? Ariel? No. So you're autocratic in your leadership. So maybe it's you, correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, ask the husband. Is it? Oh, okay. What? It could be a Elios. Yeah. Oh, okay, definitely not. Okay. So in the proistemi, your leadership style is very autocratic, right? You lead, you dictate, but you do not execute. True? Okay, I see not. The diaconia, you need to be given the vision. You're very good at execution. So when it comes to execution, you will lead others to execute. And when things seem out of control, you will step up and you will lead. My mom's a diaconia. So, and she has very high standards as diaconia usually do. And then when I mess something up, like for example, if I ask her how to cook, it's you, it's dad. Okay. He has the image of God in him. So as a mom's diaconal, she will teach me how to cook, right? At first, she'll start with giving me instructions and this is how you do. But when I do I will veer slightly from what she wants to do, she'll take full control. And then she'll end up doing the cooking. So that's a diaconia, okay? When they see things seem out of control, they completely take over. I think Kok Wee did that as well. Should I say? So what happened is I went upstairs and Helen I said, do you need help? For fun, and then she said, can you please help cut these cucumbers for me? I'm not the best person when it comes to cooking, okay? After 20 years, I still cut the same way. I don't know why. So she asked me to cut the cucumber and I was like doing it in different sizes, not the same thinness, and it was like some cubes, some slice. And then Kok Wee came and there's this great exasperation on his face, and he pushed me one side literally, and then he went, and then he looked at me as if I was very incompetent. Okay, very diaconia, right? The didasco leads his knowledge-centric leadership. I lead because I know and I can teach you. And he's very structured in his thoughts and he's very organized. I have a sister who's a didasco. She cannot execute very well, but to some limited extent. Then the metadidomi, they lead because they have an overview of what's required, the resources, the money, the budget. Is it willing? Correct me if I'm wrong. They lead because they delegate very effectively, they allocate resources well, they're structured and organized, they're able to lead and execute at the same time. So the profiteer, he gives the vision, he leads to ensure the vision is fulfilled. That's what drives him. Pastor G, if I'm wrong, please correct me. He leads with the team, and his leadership preference is consultative. Okay, Paracleo leads as a team. I prefer a round table versus a square table. Everybody has input. Everybody gives their opinion. Everybody takes turn to lead. I use motivation. I'm assertive. Okay, Paracleos are not natural leaders. They only step up for two main reasons for me. One is in the absence of a leader. Because they're very team-oriented, they do not want the team to suffer. So if there's no one leading, I will step up. And when the team is adversely affected by what I consider leadership that is going to affect the people, I will step up. Okay, then the Elios, the leadership is driven to rescue. So because when you want to rescue, they will quite automatically take the lead. I find that they do tend to be controlling as well. That's why they are good leaders. And when structure is required. So that's a form of leadership. So we can also see it from the view of communication. Each modality communicates very differently. It's important to understand communication style by modality because it affects conflict resolution as well. Okay, so the prophet here, he's assertive when the vision is clear, and he uses imagery like words, correct? Which are pretty complex. The diaconia, they are very structured. They love lists. Okay, they are very detailed, but not necessarily concise. The way my mother gives me instructions on how to cook, it can go on for 20 minutes. Even to this, how many seconds you must put the soy sauce? Yeah. So they may not be, they are detailed, but doesn't mean they're short. The didasco, they communicate in a teaching-like way. They can explain why, what, when, and how very well. The matter didomi, they are very assertive. I like it, very clear, very concise, to the point. When Huiling calls me for work, hi, Paige. No, there's no, how are you? I got to speak to you about this. Okay, yeah, okay, get it done. See you. Okay, thanks, bye. Then the proistemi tends to be very assertive. It can be aggressive if you are not in line with their objective. Is that real? Must ask the husband. Yeah. And then they can be very uncompromising. For the paracleo, we are patient, we are more emotive, we talk about feelings. All right, we're willing to hear other people's view. We ask the right questions to provoke your thoughts. It's not that because I will talk about that, to lead you to your own answers. The Elios can be both very emotive, but also very structured. My son Aaron is an Elios. He's an Elios that's very soft. He will write letters to every person in his camp group. Oh, so cute. He will wake up, he will sleep at 2 a.m. just to write love notes again. So, good and bad lah. But he can also be very structured. So he is the leader of Boys Brigade in secondary school. So he becomes, because the Elios can do all 7, right? So he becomes quite proistemic when it comes to certain leadership positions. Okay. Now this is, in every modality, you have a strength and a weakness. It's important not just to understand your own modality, but the modality of other people. So that in any setting, whether it's work or in your family, you can interact well with people. The point is this, the weakness is there so that we have to depend on the other modalities to work for the good of God. Okay, I'll give you an example of communication. So when I talk to Larry, right? Larry's a matter didomi. So he loves structure. He's assertive and to the point. But I'm emotive. So, and I don't speak directly. I actually use questions. So when I speak based on my paracleo way, after 5 minutes, you see his face scrunches up in pain. And then he'll shout, "What are you saying?" And then I realized I need to speak to him in a list form. Structured 1, Larry, 1, 2, 3. Literally, sometimes, especially if it's very urgent or it's some crisis situation, then he will be receptive. Okay, so this is how we see, sometimes we see modalities from different perspectives, and it's also used in different situations, right? Not just in work, also in crisis management. Okay, so see, these are some of the questions that are frequently asked questions when people go through modalities. Okay, can I have more than one archetype? Archetype is the same word as modalities. You have one core modality. You can wear the hat of the other. I'll give you an example. My core modality is that of a paracleo. But because I've been nurtured by my mom, who is a diaconia, I actually work like a diaconia. It's a hat. It's something I can do for a short period of time, but not for very long. So how do you tell which is your hat and which is your modality? Your modality, you are motivated to do it for long periods of time without getting exhausted. So I give you an example. As a paracleo, socializing is no problem for me, whether it's with kids or with old people or people from anywhere. So I can actually socialize the whole day. I can go from meeting my friend A, friend B, friend C, and talk for 8 hours, no problem. So that is my core. But if you ask me to do dear corner stuff, right, I maybe only be able to do it for 2-3 hours. Oh, lunch is here. Okay. So does each archetype have areas of development? The genius DNA in you needs acceptance, understanding, and freedom to express itself. Okay, then what is the difference between a gift and a calling? Gift, like I mentioned, is innate, is within you. Okay, and calling is assignment to express your gift. How to differentiate skills we acquire and our innate gift? Innate gift is natural to you. You don't get tired of using it. As I mentioned, as a paracleo, socializing 8 hours a day, no problem. Okay. What is the role of emotion or imagination? It is expressed through your gift. What are the dangers of guessing one's archetype? Misdiagnosis is worse than no diagnosis. I think it's important if you have diagnosed yourself, keep checking. But the most important thing is this: there is 1/7 part of God in you. That's key. So please do not freak out when you don't know what's your modality. Okay. Do you need all 7 archetypes to perform a team? Yes, various numbers depending on the job. In a pioneering situation, you have to maybe wear hats. So this is the thing. All of us, to some degree, can perform the other 6. Cannot say no lah. I don't believe we cannot perform the other 6. At least for the short period of time. I think we need to remember that and not just say this is my modality, I can't get this done. I hear giggles. Okay. Do archetypes work with or against each other? They should be complementary when you understand your role in your team. Can our occupations conflict with our archetypes? Your genius will be expressed in the occupation, but may not be what is expected of you. Actually, I find that the modalities has a great benefit. It actually makes you unique and it makes you stand out. It makes you special. And like we see where society tends to force us to conform, but modality celebrates your uniqueness. And I think this is especially very important for the teens. Now, this is something that the Lord revealed to me, that we're all in this journey of spiritual maturity. Okay, when I was like sitting quiet and he forced me to just listen to him. And I think it's very important to have this perspective. And to go back to Genesis 1:26-27, understand that we're made in the image of God. We need to find out who we are for the purposes of exercising our dominion as children of God and then go into the promised land. It helps because I give you an example. One of Aaron's friends was going through tremendous pressure from schoolwork. She was in poly. And every time she has exams, she sort of freaks out and then she collapses on the table and she says, "Auntie, I can't take it." Understand, and I told her, your role is not on your identity is not based on your external factor. It's not based on your performance in school. Understand that studies is God's way of bringing you into spiritual maturity. Understand that you are made in the image of God and that his objective is for you is to walk into your destiny. And then when I told that to her, the pressure came off. So the key thing is this. We should be living from a place of the Father's sovereignty in everything that he created, which includes us. We should be living in from our identity in God, operating in our modality, growing in spiritual maturity, and driven to fulfill his kingdom purpose, which he placed in us before we were born. That is why we exist. The Lord is calling for a time of manifestation of his sons of God, dominion. He's calling for a time to be his image bearers. It's time to take back the land, exercise our dominion, expand his kingdom and territory. That was God's original plan. So we need to start at the very beginning, understand and establish ourselves in Him, and say, the image of God is in me. That's all I have to share today. So I hope this helps. So I think this is important to remember. Romans 8:19. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Thank you. Any questions? No, no. Has anyone guessed the modality for the tier of girls? No. No. Rose? Any idea? Which one? You want me to go back? Anything cross your mind? Understood. Okay. Maybe you have to do one more session. I don't know. Okay. So no more questions? Okay. Thank you. Now you can have it.